we want to talk about Scott Frost because I think you're right. This is a situation that certainly is tenuous, but the talent is there. And we talked about it last year, Hack. I agree with you 100%. It was never a roster issue with them. And even Adrian Martinez, who was much maligned by the fan base, that guy gave everything he had. And did he turn the football over a little bit too much? Absolutely. Was that a guy that you would want in your locker room? 100%, because it's a guy who gave you everything that he had. Defensively, I thought yes. Yeah. And defensively, I thought they were solid. And you've got Garrett Nelson coming back. He's going to be one of the best defensive linemen in the conference. Luke Reimer came in at linebacker as a walk-on, finished with over 100 tackles a year ago. He's earned himself a scholarship in the few years that he's been at Nebraska. They were plus 63 scoring margin on the season and only won 3 games. Yeah. All of their 9 losses came by single digits, and those were to teams like Oklahoma, Michigan State, and Ohio State. The best 3-win team I've ever seen in the history of college football. I've only been around for 28 years, but by damn it seemed like they had all the pieces in place. I mean, how much pressure is on Scott Frost, and where do you draw the line on how you define success for this Nebraska team this upcoming season?
So, Josh, when we talk about the fact that they, had a positive scoring differential but only won 3 games, just as a side note, my first year at Michigan, we were 7-6, and in those 6 losses, they were close games. I think it was 6 losses by a total of like 11. Most of those losses were by a total of like 11 or 12 points, barring the outside of the Michigan State game. We came back the next year and we're 5-7. So it doesn't necessarily mean much. And, one concern for me, I think the pressure is on Scott Frost. Like, this is kind of do or die. It's one of those situations where, your back's against the wall. If you don't succeed or perform this year, you're out. We saw how that actually benefited Harbaugh this year because you kind of take the leap and you let it all out. There's no room to be uptight. You got nothing to lose. Let's go. One concern for me is the special teams last year. Yeah, the special teams significantly cost them games. And Josh, maybe you could talk about this. What does it say about your team as a whole from a discipline standpoint and a culture standpoint if you have poor special teams? Maybe you could run with that.
Yeah, no, I was a guy who played on teams my 4 years at Ohio State, and I made my money in the NFL basically covering kicks, and it's an integral part of the game. And one of the things that people talk about, if I had to rank football in terms of importance, I think possessing the football is the most important thing in football, NFL or college. And that's why I personally believe that more coaches should go for it on 4th and short situations, regardless of field position. I think possession of the football is key. But the next thing that comes into play is that field position battle. And people talk about those hidden yards in games. And I think it is really important, number one, to be able to take advantage of those hidden yards. You, as a defender, if I have a team backed up, that makes me feel better than if I got a team that's in midfield, because I know that the percentage of them scoring points is going to be significantly less if they have to travel more yards, right? So just from a mentality standpoint, I can play looser, I can be more aggressive, and I think that's key. But the other thing about special teams is those are the few plays where you know what the outcome is going to be regardless. Is I kick the ball, the other team gets the ball. I know what's going to happen unless I have a stupid penalty and I mess that whole thing up. And that messes with the psyche of a football team. And so as much as guys don't want to play on teams, or as much as guys don't want to put the effort in on teams, it is an integral part of the game because it's a fraction of what you do, but it has such an impact on the outcome of football games. So to me, that's a program that needs to be spending a lot of time on special teams. And it's not just on the practice field, but you need to do the walkthroughs. And then when you get into the meeting room, let's go over what special teams should actually look like. Like, let's break it down. We'll play good clips of special teams. We'll talk about what the anticipated outcome should be. And then we'll talk about what the importance of the outcomes are. Because if I can dictate the tempo there, I automatically have an edge. And that is something they certainly did not have last year. And it bit them in the ass more than once and in some really critical situations.
You guys had starters playing special teams at Ohio State last year. Michigan had starters. Alabama had starters. You got to put your ego aside and say, if I want to win a game, I have to participate on special teams. Maybe if you're a starter, you don't need to play all 4, but at least
you got to be covering punts or something.
Yeah.
But to your point though, Josh, the outcome's known, and I think it's also one of the easiest segments of the game to change because ultimately it's discipline and effort. Yes. When you're talking about special teams, it's discipline and effort, right?
Yep.
I say that's easy to change. It can be hard, but it is, in my opinion, probably the easiest thing to change. If you're trying to make a cataclysmic change to one of your teams or one of your units, I think it's one of the easiest things to do. So, you know, I don't think Scott, he's been around the game. He's a smart guy. I think he's looked at it enough. But I think the teams, I think they got it. And if they can put some stuff together, it's a wide open West. We've always talked about that, the way they've structured it. And, you know, I think Wisconsin's gotten really comfortable up there. And to your point, Jake, I mean, I don't know what Graham's got. So do or die, let the nuts hang, let the fucker fly, man. Let the fucker fly, dude. So I think you're going to see that.
And that's kind of why I asked you that, Josh, is what does it mean when you have 4 special teams? And it does come down to discipline and effort. And for Scott Frost, when you say how important is this year? Well, this is extremely important because, you know, I don't think he has a job here at Nebraska if he doesn't go out there and succeed.
It'll be tough. And I think that you can grade Nebraska's success on more than just wins and losses as well, because we're having this conversation. But do you turn the football over less? Do you have better special teams plays? Can you eliminate some of the stupid penalties that got you in some bad situations a year ago? So to me, even if you make a bowl game, if you're still playing sloppy ball, did you really achieve what you set out to do at the beginning of the year?
And another point too is what you got to think about is, where does Nebraska go from here? Is Nebraska any longer a destination spot?
It's not.
You have your prodigal son. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, man. Like, I think Scott's got some stuff and he's got some leverage, but I think if Nebraska fires Scott Frost after this year and there's no improvements, I think you lose Nebraska in terms of the landscape of college football.
I think that is a very good conversation for a different day, because I got some strong opinions on that. Certainly not a destination. And you're probably looking at hiring one of those young whiz kid coordinators, because I'm not exactly sure you're going to get that head coach who's done a really good job, even at a small school, to take a leap of faith at Nebraska right now, which is a tough situation.